Dead Candy. Dedicated entertainment for the dead.
Spoiler alert, Slashers Paradise encourages viewers to watch these horror films before listening to our show. Danny and Lance will go through everything, including filmmaking, dialogue, characters, and even full scene breakdowns when we get excited. Enjoy the show.
I don't want to scare anyone again, but I'm going to give it to you straight about Jason. Again. His body was never recovered from the lake after he drowned. Again. And if you listen to the old timers in town, they'll say he's still out there. And he's hungry. Hungry for blood. Jason's out there. Watching. Always on the prowl for intruders. Again. Waiting to kill. Again. Devour. Again. Thirsty for young blood. Again. If you haven't gathered it by now, we are doing Friday the 13th. Again.
Welcome to Slashers Paradise. That's Danny.
Mm-hmm.
And I am Lance. It's the end of the world as we know it.
It's the rebirth of this franchise.
Kind
What we were
of.
Intended.
But we're not going to say it, but then we are. And then,
And I feel fine.
yeah, I feel fine. It's Friday the 13th. The reboot?
The remake?
The rebirth?
The reimagining?
The sequel?
The requel?
The next movie?
The last installment, at least, in the Friday the 13th franchise.
For now.
We have arrived, folks, slashers. Welcome back to the Slashers Paradise. And yes, we are here. We have got here. We've got to the end, which is the final installment up to this point, like Lance just said, of the Friday the 13th franchise. And it is simply titled Friday the 13th. Nothing else.
And if you've been counting, technically, it is the 12th installment of the Jason Friday the 13th franchise.
So what you're telling me, Lance, is if we were to count them, a number has been synonymous with this entire franchise, and yet we have stopped one short of making the 13th one?
Yes, we have, Danny.
My goodness
Those
gracious.
legal battles that we have talked about a little bit here and there.
Oh, boy.
Coming back to haunt us. It has, and what's funny is we were recording this in 2022, so it's been 13 years since this movie came out.
I will say that I have seen on different either social media sites or what have you about that there's been more movement. They did arrive at a definitive, at least right now, before appeals and all that stuff, decision in the legal battle for Jason and the naming rights. I think they are still back to that old judgment where if it's called Jason whatever, it's fine to make, as with the hockey mask wearing, machete wielding character. However, if it is called Friday the 13th, that is not okay. It has to pay royalties to Victor Miller. And I've said this time and time and time again, just freaking pay the man. Just pay the man. Who cares? Who cares, Lance?
That honestly leads right into a story about this film, the 2009 version. They did not call this a remake. They called it a sequel to Victor Miller, basically saying like, oh no, it's just kind of somewhat retelling some of the old stories, but goes right in line with all the other Friday the 13th. That way they could pay Victor Miller less money. And then after all the legal battle with that, they ended up marketing this as a remake anyway.
I mean, yeah, like it is slimy as hell when you deal with back end shit like that. And it's like, how are we supposed to be fans of the franchise? Because if you're ultimately fans of the franchise, you're fans of the people who create it. So it's like, we know the players essentially, because horror fans are, they're smart. They look at the tabloids and they read the dirt sheets and stuff. So it's like, if this is anybody in like, the Cunninghams or anything like that, like that's pretty shitty. Like, stop trying to be slimy. Just pay the man. That's it.
Especially nowadays. We've talked about this recently. Like, nostalgia is paying the bills right now for everyone. So come together, make this deal happen. Sounds like it is happening now that the litigation and the courts have settled on who owns what. But that's not why we're here today. We are here to talk about this film. Come join us on our next episode, and we will talk more about the future of Friday the 13th. Okay. The past of Friday the 13th, and our ideas for Friday the 13th. But
we're here.
2009. It's the season of the remake. Halloween's had its remake with Rob Zombie at this point. This year, 2009. So My Bloody Valentine 3D came out the same year. We've already had Texas Chainsaw Massacre remade a few years prior. So this is the grungy, dark remake of all of our classic slashers. And Jason has finally gotten his. Danny.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this film?
From the producers of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003 come these.
Leftovers.
Comes this movie again. It just feels like TCM 2003, and it sucks because that's 6 years removed, and it just is the same sort of tricks are being told or are be shown again. You got like all the teens are like, they're all kind of dressed the same. They all kind of look the same. Michael Bay's involved in this as well. So it's just kind of like there's a lot of familiarity with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 remake, which I like. But I like it because at that point, that's the only version of that style that I'm seeing. When I see this, however, I'm like, oh, I've seen this before. It looks like TCM 2003. And I'm like, no me gusta that much.
Yeah, I thought the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was a giant leap in a different direction from everything else that we had seen with TCM. It was super violent, super gory, very dark. It was a very different version of Leatherface and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre world than we had ever seen. Not only does this feel like it's a mild leap for Friday the 13th, but it feels like a mild leap from anything that we had seen at this point. We get a new version of Jason, which I like.
Yes,
I like a lot.
Right off the bat, it's a definitely new version of Jason. Yes,
that I'm okay with. Everything else just feels like leftovers and like let's just bring the whole same crew back from TCM. That worked, and this should work too. We've got a bunch of we got to take care of business first.
We got to taking care of business.
All right, Danny. We have a game that we like to play on Slashers Paradise. It's called Slash Word. Tell our listeners how that game works.
I love Slash Word, Lance, because Slash Word is the Slashers Paradise version of the popular game Pathword, wherein when you hear the slash word said throughout the podcast, throughout the show, take a drink of your beverage of choice. It could be an alcoholic drink like Lance and I are partaking in right now. Very fun, but it doesn't have to be. But we just ask that you all play along and have fun on Slashers Paradise with Slash Word.
Yes, and that's right. And every time that we play Slash Word, we have a special guest caller giving the Slash Word for the night. Danny, who is our Slash Word holder for tonight? Who's calling in?
Well, I'll tell you what, Lance. It's funny because when I think of this movie, as a matter of fact, when I think of a lot of Friday the 13th installments, I think of blood. Of course, I think of gore. But most prominently, I think of sex and nudity and gratuitousness of it all. And actually, this installment plays very much fast and loose with the idea of gratuitous nudity. So all those hormones are going crazy. So I thought it would be fantastic to get Rick, the hormone monster from the TV series on Netflix, Big Mouth, to call in with the slash word for today.
How appropriate is that? All right, Rick, you are on the line. Give our listeners the slash word of the night.
Hey everybody, this is Rick, the hormone monster. Just wanted to say hello and give you the slash word. It's sex. 'Cause I love sex. What you gonna do?
All right, thank you very much, Rick.
I think that was appropriate. Who better to talk about a movie full of hormones, jacked up hormones, and their explodingness all over the place than a hormone monster?
Sex.
Sex is definitely the theme of sex and violence and gore and all that stuff. But like, boy, when Michael Bay gets involved with any sort of nudity, it is shot in a very specific way. A lot of bronze, a lot of shininess. It's
funny because, yeah, there is a lot of sex, not only in this movie, but a lot of Michael Bay films is like, the gorgeous girl with her boobs mostly out. But there's a rumor that he actually walked out of this movie for how much sex and like gratuitous nudity was in the beginning of this film. He actually walked out halfway through.
You're kidding.
The beginning of rumor.
Well,
Danny,
oh yeah,
give us that pina colada for Friday the 13th, 2009.
If you like pina coladas, now listen up. I'm going to give you a pina colada for Friday the 13th. I should say 2009 after it because it's like, yeah I mean, like, it's the remake, but it's just called Friday the 13th. Anyway, Friday the 13th, 2009, pina colada. Here it goes. A group of young adults have made their way to Crystal Lake to hang out and explore and vacation, and a mysterious figure in the woods has begun to hack them up and kill them one by one, who is none other than Jason Voorhees. Will they survive? Will they make it out? Is there an underlying reason as to why he's doing all this? We'll find out in this installment, the remake of Friday the 13th, 2009.
All right. Thank you very much. And our breakdown for the film was released February 13th, 2009. Budget was $19 million. Box office $92.7 million. Good Lord.
Wow.
Directed by Marcus Nispel. Written by Mark Swift, Damon Shannon, Mark Wheaton. These names might sound familiar because they also wrote Freddy vs. Jason. Michael Bay, Brad Fuller, and Andrew Form. Yes.
Form it up.
They produced this film, and that might sound familiar because they're all from a Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Wow.
There's a big crew coming over and doing Jason some justice, I would say.
Wow.
Starring Jared Padalecki.
Uh-huh.
Juliana, can't read my writing. Hold on.
Jared Padalecki. Okay. From Supernatural.
Yes, from Supernatural.
Who plays, Clay.
Yes. Okay. Amanda Righetti, Derek Mears, who we're going to talk about quite a bit. Danielle Pennebaker, Travis Van Winkle, Aaron Yu, Danny's favorite.
No.
I'm going to go with now.
Yeah,
there's a few more down the road, but
everybody.
we'll get to them. All right. So that's the setup. We got the breakdown. Made quite a bit of money. Obviously, we want to see Jason in the theater.
I'll tell you what, Lance. It took my money opening weekend.
Same.
I was in Austin, and I watched this movie at Alamo Drafthouse. It was released, I remember, around Valentine's Day.
Yeah, February.
Yeah. So because I remember
literally the day before. Yeah.
Yeah, I made this This was a Valentine's date for me. I totally convinced the person that I went with to, hey, let's make a whole thing about it. Let's go to the movies for Friday the 13th. This is a big deal. It's a remake. It's coming back. The trailer definitely hooked me. So I was like, oh, let's do it. And we did. And we went to Alamo Drafthouse, and it wasn't the best sort of date night just because of how ridiculous and in your face some of like the nudity and such was. If you weren't a fan and you were just a casual viewer, it would have been like, yeah, that's a lot. But yeah, I watched it in the theaters at the Alamo Drafthouse, which is always so fun because they bring food to you and all that good stuff. So yeah, I was there to give them some of the money for their box office weekend and or total.
Yeah, I was there too. I'm trying to remember exactly where I was and how I was. This was a fun time because I was also in the theater a month earlier for My Bloody Valentine. I just looked up the date. That was a month prior, which is interesting because
it's very interesting.
This is only a day before Valentine's Day, yet that movie came out a month before this. And Jared Padalecki's co-host or actor from Supernatural was in this, or was in My Bloody Valentine. So
yeah, it's
just
funny.
A fun time.
It might be the same casting director.
Yeah.
A few of these characters, especially Danielle Panabaker, they all kind of like started, latching onto TV series around that time. You mentioned Jared Padalecki. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay. And
people are gonna crush us for this.
That's
by the way.
okay.
There's a huge fan
I know
base
there's a
for
huge
him.
Supernatural deal, and I apologize. You could say my last name. You could butcher it if that helps you. But Danielle Panabaker is she's on, I believe, The Flash, isn't she? Yeah, I think she is, because I know that to be true. So there. But yeah, a lot of these actors do start jumping on to other well-known TV series, well-known movies. Aaron Yu was in a bunch of stuff at this time. So and of course, Derek Mears, if anybody's in the SoCal, LA area, has probably seen Derek Mears perform all around the comedy clubs and such. Mm-hmm. So all that to say, it's, when I saw it, I was like, I don't like these I don't like these actors. I don't like them. I don't like any of them. I don't buy it. It just like, I felt like even at the time I was like, there's something that's not latching on. So like right off the bat, I remember saying to myself, do not like the opening, hate the dual openings. Essentially, you got the opening credits and then you got a whole scene before you get the title card. And I absolutely effing hated that because I get it. It's a tall order to do what they want to do when they're saying, we do want to remake it. Okay, but you cannot remake it from part 3. That doesn't make sense. Yeah. So they want to show you part 1 and they want to show you part 2 just so they can give you all of essentially Jason in a mask as the majority of the movie. Okay. You essentially give us the last part of the original Friday the 13th in the credits, in the opening credits. Are you out of your fucking mind? What is your problem? You're going to really just minimize Betsy Palmer's iconic Pamela Voorhees' character in like cut in between the cast and the crew?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Like, that is so uncool. I almost want them to actually start from Friday the 13th. You can, you don't have to show the mom. You could just start from him as a hockey mask wearing killer.
Yeah, why not?
You don't have to do all this bullshit.
You already planned to skip ahead. So doing that weird early telling, we don't see the actual title until 24 minutes into this movie because there's such a huge double opening. And I remember being in the theater. And at this time in my life, I was thinking like, oh, I'm a horror movie connoisseur.
Oh, yeah.
This is a sequel. Immediately, I was like, no, this is a sequel. Because you chopped up that weird opening with the Voorhees mom storyline. Also,
and then
you kind of rewrote it because if you notice, the girl that chops off her head is wearing a Camp Crystal Lake t-shirt as if she's a counselor. So it is somewhat of a rewrite or rebooted version.
Yes. I agree. It's funny because after really you see the Camp Crystal Lake shirt and you may see the sign that says Camp Crystal Lake, they always refer to it as Crystal Lake. Yeah. Even on the poster, it says welcome to Crystal Lake and things of that. Like, that's their tagline on the poster. The poster's kind of cool. Like, it's Jason just standing there in the middle and it's just like Friday 13th. And he's like, underscored or whatever, the moon is glowing behind him and it just says welcome to Crystal Lake. And I wonder if that was like, if the idea of not saying camp, if there was like a Victor Miller sort of thing. I don't know, but it was just like, maybe that's me just kind of thinking too much into it, but I always remember hearing it as Camp Crystal Lake. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it's funny because you mentioned the poster and I was looking at it before we started the episode and I was like, this is kind of a symbol of the movie itself. There's nothing particularly special about it. If you have listened to any of our prior episodes, I have said, I believe personally that Jason does his best in stylized films. 3 is one of my absolute favorites. 6, one of my absolute favorites. I kind of like Manhattan because it's so stylized. Freddy versus Jason, kind of stylized in the film, not so much Jason himself. But there's no real true style to it other than its grittiness and darkness. But Jason always had a bit of comedy and cheese and fun 80s stuff to it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean,
taking
like,
all of that away and making it like mid 2000s comedy doesn't fit to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of like bro humor in this thing that, like, if you, I guess, aren't of that sort of age, which, like, that should have hit me right in like dead center because I was around the age of, you know, sort of these people that are in this movie. But like, even the way that everything is shot, it's so zoomed in. I mean, it's the same director. So like, if you look and watch Texas Chainsaw 2003, you're going to think this looks almost eerily, like very eerily similar. It's because it is. They even have like the auxiliary characters that they cast, the people to just kind of be like, you know, featuring actors. They all kind of fit a certain mold and stuff, and that's okay. But if Friday the 13th is anything, it is not Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
No.
So I think this may be a nice fit, which is why I like the remake for Texas Chainsaw so much.
Yeah.
It does not fit a Friday the 13th. That being said, not only did they try to cram in the original plot of the first movie, Friday the 13th, the original in 1980, but they tried to like fit in, let's just, you know, throw in the burlap sack Jason in there as well. And he, you know, essentially kills our first set of campers, young adults who are just out in the woods first. But there is something kind of cool though. Very cool.
Yeah.
The trailer for this one and the trailer for Freddy versus Jason definitely hooked me. And the one part of the trailer that hooked me the most is burlap sack Jason kind of turning to look at a would-be victim and just charging at them and like kind of winding up and is about to do an amazing slash with the machete just over the head. And it cuts before obviously he makes contact. But I was like, oh, Jason's running.
Yeah.
He's sprinting. He's closing the distance quickly. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is a different Jason. This is a very different Jason.
What I remember about the trailer too is they did those like black scene cuts to actually slow it down a little bit, so it felt epic. But then when you actually watch it in the movie, it's even more aggressive because they don't do any sort of cut in between him running and doing this overhand machete to the girl. But yeah, you know right away going into the movie, you're getting like survival man, mountain man Jason. Got to bring mountain man back into the conversation.
You do. But right off the bat, we have a resourceful yet violent, vicious. Everything points to him being smarter, and the filmmakers would admit that that's true. They're like, we're not going to do this simple-minded mind of a child Jason anymore. This is a hunter who's living off the woods, who is cunning, who is smart, who lays traps, and we see that in the second cold opening, where that first group of young kids or young adults rather, one of them is trying to run back because Jason has started to kill them off. I hate this plot point, but I'm going to mention it. They're trying to find some of them of this group are trying to find a weed farm or just like a random patch of weed that's been growing in the woods so that they can, you know, harvest it, which is so funny looking at it during modern times. I was like, they're like, oh, we're gonna make so much money, we're gonna be so rich, and I'm now thinking, I'm like,
right. But for the time, it was relevant. So like they're gonna go find the secret stash of weed and sell it
because it costs them nothing to make and whatever. But So that's essentially some of their motivation. So they've been trying to find it, and then Jason then finds them. And I guess if you think about the old motivations, the kids are starting to have sex, so he's maybe motivated to kill them after that. But it doesn't feel that way. It feels almost like he feels like a Predator almost. He's like picking them off one by one very aggressively.
Yeah.
But what I will say about his cunning is that there is a moment where he gets one of the girls, puts her in her sleeping bag, closes her up in it, ties the sleeping bag to a rope, and then like strews it up around a branch, hangs her above the campfire, and is just dangling her there to be burned so that her boyfriend could come running out, try to save her. And when he does that, he gets caught in a bear trap. And we all know, folks, that we've been waiting for it. And here it is, the connection between Friday the 13th, 2009 and Leprechaun. It's right there. Oh my
God, how do you do this?
I just do it because, well, you got caught in the bear trap. Look at you, like a little sap, right? When he gets Nathan caught in the bear trap and this guy gets caught in a bear trap, it's all connected. The Leprechaun did it first and probably did it better, but there you are.
Please help me, listeners. I don't want to talk about Leprechaun until next March.
Leprechaun laid the bear trap. Jason laid the bear trap. Leprechaun's very smart. The Leprechaun's very smart.
The burning body sleeping bag trick kill seems like such a statement because Friday the 13th, as we've talked about, has been butchered throughout the entire franchise for violence and gore and everything else. So that particular kill right up front made me think like it was a big fat like, hey fans, remember how everything got cut out of these films? Well, now we can actually explore that because it's 2009 and we've seen way worse by now, and you all are desensitized and nobody cares anymore. So boom, burning sleep bag.
But if they made it, that one, they made that moment at least feel so like helpless, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, she's burning in there, she's roasting, and I remember like the shot, it's of her upside down, and just like imagine the feeling that you would, you know, essentially feel if you were hung upside down above a campfire and you were just like blazing, roasting and screaming. And then think about yourself in that moment, but also think about the boyfriend who's like trying to rescue her. And when he gets caught in the bear trap, no joke, folks, they show his leg gets pretty much chopped up to where it's almost all bone. It's so disgusting. But
that scene and the way you kind of described it also reminds me of the remake again during this time, 2006, The Hills Have Eyes. When the dad is burning up on the stake. Like, I remember watching that in the theater and being in absolute shock because of the torment and the torture. And this was a similar feeling of, oh my God, like this is torture, watching your friend burn. You can't do anything, you know?
I hate that. But right off the bat, I mean, like, even if you go on IMDb, you look at the cast and their profile pictures, their headshots, the person playing Jason Voorhees now is named Derek Mears. His headshot is just, he's staring down the barrel. He's got his head down. He's not making a nice face. I think he even has like blood or he's sipping out of like a twisty straw. So it's kind of funny, but it's, he's got evil intent behind his eyes. The dude is massive. You know, he's huge. He's got he's stocky. He would have been a great Jason. I think it would have been a great Jason in Freddy vs. Jason, as a matter of fact. You know, like they made him a little bit more lean and upper body strong, but he also has a little bit of Hills Have Eyes things going on. He's got like a hunch and things of that nature. But yeah, one thing that they do not miss an opportunity to do is remind you that Jason is deformed. Yes. The deformed eye is on the right side again.
Okay.
So thank God. And remember I talked about those two stupid cold openings?
Yeah.
The first one after the Mrs. Voorhees gets her head chopped off, and it's the rumor that some say that Jason saw her get her head chopped off. He saw it all happen. Then he just had to live off the woods. Well, they don't rumor it now. They show you that once Mrs. Voorhees' head gets chopped off, there goes little baby big fucking head Jason down the rainy path to go collect his mom's head, and he's like they make the kid super deformed, and I hate it because he looks so innocent because he's like a little baby, but like his head, it's like obviously a prosthetic fake head.
Yeah, it's just bulbous.
It's just bulbous. He looks like Bulbasaur. So when you see him there, and then when you see him later, eventually, of course, he has to be in the burlap sack for a little bit longer because it's, if nothing else, if they're going to show you burlap sack, they got to show you when he gets his mask.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So what we see in the movie, Lance, actually isn't what they had originally shot.
What did they originally shoot?
So
did Shelley come back?
Oh, I wish he came back to like serve papers because he's a lawyer.
And here's your mask.
So originally the guy who is okay. So subplot, real quick. Let's get to it. Clay Miller is looking for his sister Whitney,
which is very familiar from this franchise.
Someone looking for their sister. Yes, it is. Rob looking for his sister.
Yes.
But Clay is looking for his sister, Whitney, who was presumed to be killed in the second cold opening, right? Okay, so Clay is basically going around town, and this is, I think, what did they say, 6 weeks or 2 weeks later?
I think it's 2.
It's 2 or 6. It's in between or one of those.
Yeah.
From this, essentially when Burlap Sack Jason killed the first group of kids, and now this central group who are going to this cabin they've got all the demographics or the cliches checked off. They've got a stoner, they've got a promiscuous girl, they've got a douchebag of a guy. They're checking off all the boxes, just these like basically cannon fodder, but we can't say Kane Hodder fodder anymore. He's not there, but
yeah.
Clay is going around the town of Crystal Lake to look for his sister, hanging up these missing signs, and he finds himself eventually talking to what's like this like backwoods dude who's working at a wood chipper. Wood chipper, very important, might come up later. Meet the wood chipper. I always wish I had a wood chipper at the ranch. We didn't have one of those.
That sounds so dangerous. Did you ever see Fargo?
I did.
Oh God. Okay.
Yes, but I was like, I guess we didn't need one, Lance, because any excess wood we would just like shave off the like branches and like make firewood from it because mesquite was everywhere. So like I've never saw the point of putting things through a wood chipper. We need that. We need that wood. That's good wood. Don't chip it.
Okay.
Anyway, so Clay goes and is looking everywhere and goes by this, we'll just call him Hillbilly, who is in the wood chipper. He's a backwoods country boy who's got like a few screws loose. He's obviously, off.
Are we still in New Jersey at this point? Because
I don't know, right? Well, no. There can be some of that in New Jersey. They got the Jersey Devil and
oh, you're right. There is the backwoods of Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Continue West Virginia-ish. I don't know the map.
That's a little distant, but
West Virginia is not next to East Virginia.
Oh boy.
So Clay's looking. It says, "Have you seen my sister?" No, I haven't seen her. So we're introduced to this guy who is then like, "Hey, I found a bunch of weed. Do you want to buy some? Fuck your shit up, boy." Oh, actually, he has one of the best lines, in my opinion. Right when Clay comes up behind him and tries to get his attention, he's putting shit. This other dude, the hillbilly's putting stuff through the wood chipper, and he scares him. He's like, "Oh man, shit, it scared the shit out of me," or whatever he says. But he goes, "You came that close to hitting the start button on the whoop ass machine, boy." And I'm like, if you ever find yourself in a situation to articulate that whole diss, like you're there, right? Yeah. But anyway, that's the guy who has a bunch of stuff that he's collecting. He's in the barn. He's got stuff upstairs. He's got all this. So the original scene, back to the reason I'm talking about all this, the original scene of when Jason gets his mask. This hillbilly's been saying that someone's been stealing kerosene, and it's Jason. He's stealing kerosene because he's very woodsy, right? He's a Boy Scout. He's an Eagle Scout. So when he's coming down from, this is Jason coming down from the top of the barn with the kerosene, this dude sees him, but he's wearing the hockey mask. The kid is the kid is wearing the guy is wearing the hockey mask, and Jason's just like, come here, I got to talk to you. And the guy's like, oh man, I don't, what are you doing? I don't want to. And Jason just grabs him by the head, if you could imagine, with his left hand, pulls the machete out with his right hand. So he's holding the top of his head, chops off the head, but keeps the mask. The head drops, and Jason just puts it on. Okay. And they thought, it doesn't make it grand for him getting the mask. Yeah, they thought it was just kind of like novelty and just kind of like
compared to what we got.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So the way we get it is Mr. Woodchipper goes up in the attic because he hears something. He thinks someone's up there, so he goes to defend his territory. Basically, feels up one of his own mannequins. Yes, he has mannequins, and he's feeling them up. And then Jason comes. What do we call him? Rag doll, burlap sack Jason.
Yeah.
Okay, by the way, the burlap sack, if you have not seen the movie, is pulled back and looks way cooler.
Oh, it looks
now.
So much cooler.
He's all sleek and a handsome burlap sack or wrap or whatever you want.
It looks almost like Darkman or
oh yeah.
Yeah, like
that's a good call.
Yeah, like he's bandaged up or something.
Yeah,
like
it's way more sleek and pulled back. It's a little more like you like the movie. The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Yeah.
It's a little in between.
As opposed to the original Friday the 13th Part 2, where it's just like a pillowcase.
It's a sack over his head and an eye cut out.
Right.
And it's a little ridiculous when you do look back at it sometimes. But, so he kills Mr. Woodchipper.
Yeah.
And, like, the way that the mask is revealed, so the Woodchipper, like, pulls his mask off. So Jason looks at his own burlap wrap sack, whatever you want, goes, what's that behind that other sheet? Ooh, I know. Let me pull it back. And then there's this great reveal of the hockey mask with like the perfect amount of sunlight coming through an attic for God knows what reason. Shines on the mask. He pulls out this mask, which we don't know how he even saw it. I mean, realistically, when you're watching, you see from the angle of Jason, you don't see anything. He's like, ooh, a mask. Puts it on, checks himself out in the mirror, which is great. He does. He really does. And like does a head tilt for himself. Like, yes, angles. Yes. Vogue. Okay. This is my new look.
Yes. And maybe this was the better of two evils. Honestly, I think him getting it from the Woodchipper was fine. I mean, like he got it from Shelley to begin with, but they never saw like the transfer. You just saw that Shelley was wearing it at one time and then Jason was wearing it. So it's like, it didn't have to be this like grand handoff. But I will say for our Woodchipper, in the one you see in the scene you see in the movie, he's fighting off Jason and he takes a swipe at him and does take his mask, his burlap sack off his face. Yeah. And Jason is just standing there all messed up. And our Woodchipper says one of the best lines, continuing the trend of someone being thrown off from the mere sight of what Jason looks like. We saw it in Part 3 where the biker's like, oh shit, and we saw it in Manhattan when he takes the mask off and shows the thugs in the streets of Times Square and it scares them off. And we also see it here where the Woodchipper says, what the fuck? Shit ain't fucking right, dude. I mean... What a perfect sort of moment, because it's like if anybody's looking for that, they will remember that is an aspect of it. That is an aspect of Jason's being messed up. And boy, did these filmmakers not miss an opportunity to show you glimpses of how horrible looking they made Jason.
Yeah. It is pretty creepy because it's not totally clear, but you can see enough of him where you're like, oh, fuck, yeah, okay, he is. And then once he puts a mask on, his neck is fucking huge.
Dude.
It's bigger than his head. And I think that was prosthetic or it was like a cowl, a silicone cowl or something, because Derek Mears does not look that big necked. as Jason does in this film.
I mean, that would be what he would look like if Lance was playing him only, because Lance has got the killer traps.
Okay. It's not traps, though. It's the neck.
Well,
Just the fattest neck I've ever
It's all
seen.
connected, but like, yes, he looks like Kurt Angle. How's that?
He is all neck.
He's all neck. He's like Kurt Angle before he broke the neck, and then, after he got treatment.
Okay.
This dude, but you know what? If it is a prosthetic or cowl, I'm glad it was flesh colored.
Yeah.
And not black or gray anymore.
Well, yeah, because this is, I guess, a remake, kind of. So it's the new telling. So he is still human form Jason. And it would make sense for him to be flesh colored. He's got a little bit of hair, which we're not fans of.
I hate it. I've always hated the hair. If I haven't said it in the previous installments, well, let me catch up now. I never like the hair on Jason. I absolutely hate it. It just looks too Hills Have Eyes for me, man.
Yeah, I think I get the idea of it, of like once he's in the crypt kind of thing, when he's resurrected out of 6, like you do continue to grow your hair and nails in the coffins, but it's just let him go bald or whatever. Like that just makes more sense to me, or it looks better. It's more sleek.
Yeah, but also if you're Jason, do that for yourself. You've obviously been checking yourself out in the mirror. Just like hook yourself up, man. Line yourself up. Get yourself some waves or whatever.
Of course, at this point, the way he looks, like, what's the point?
True. But what they do in this film that's different from the others. In the others, he had basically a wonky eye, a closed eye, a droopy eye socket. In this one, the eye socket's open, but it's fisheye.
Yeah.
It's like gooey, cloudy fish eye, and very gross. And then he also has like teeth that go up to the right of his face. He almost looks like a piranha. It's like, or Friday the 13th Part 7, where he's like chewing, his jaws exposed. There's so there's some of that. But I will say, though, overall, it felt too much. Why?
The whole movie.
The whole movie felt too much like, let's give him a reason. Let's give this a reason. Let's give it all a reason for the madness. And I, as you know, have never really needed that. I honestly don't. I just would be fine if it was like they are as bewildered as the rest of us. Why is he killing? He just is. How's that? But yeah. Also his wardrobe, there's like a clean shot of Jason when he is like looking for Jenna and Clay. They're hiding from him at the abandoned Camp Crystal Lake, essentially, but there's a bunch of like pristine canoes for have been abandoned for so long. Yeah. And he I will give Derek Mears a lot of credit. He brought a lot of the viciousness that Kane Hodder brought to a lot of his portrayals to his Jason Voorhees interpretation. But when he's looking for them and he's throwing these canoes and stuff around, the camera pretty much zooms out and you see this like shot of him, and he's wearing like a long, almost trench coat.
Yeah,
I almost want him to have his utility belt back.
The jacket goes almost down to his knees, so it's not quite a trench coat. It looks like it's a trench coat, a hunting tactical jacket, all torn up though. Like, okay, it kind of all the sleekness and the sexiness of Jason's kind of gone away with this huge jacket on him.
Yeah, I mean, also, but he has bulging pecs.
Yeah,
like me. Why are you laughing?
I'm not laughing.
I saw you.
No, I saw you snap a look, hoping that I was laughing.
But you're already smiling.
No, because you snapped your face at me and I smiled. That's
okay. Fine.
I'm not laughing.
All right. I have pecs. I have them. They're there, but they're not to the point where it's making his whole shirt pull off of his neck. I mean, this dude is like, it has to be a cowl.
Yeah.
Derek Mears is a fit guy, but it has to be a cowl.
I've also seen a photo. It is a cowl. I've seen him without the mask and just the cowl with all the hair, the baby hair.
Holy cow.
God. Like you said, everything has to be explained. I think this is the Rob Zombie remake of Halloween version of everything needs to be explained. Well, that did pretty well, so let's explain it for Jason. And how does he get from point A to point B in the camp? Well, there's underground tunnels.
What?
That he lives in and takes his captives now he has down there and his bodies. And not only that, but he's rigged bells and whistles and tripwires for people so he knows where they are so he can run to that spot and find them.
Booty traps. That's what I said. Booby traps. Jason's data from the Goonies just rigging booby traps all over Camp Crystal Lake, which, like, honestly, like, I get it. He's like, oh, maybe he's still self-conscious. He's like, nah, I can't be out there, just walking around. So I gotta sneak into the shadows and kind of like use this underground system, which I'm like, is that necessary? Is any of that necessary?
Absolutely not.
It almost feels like we're going to add something for the sake of adding something.
We've also already discovered his shack and shanty. And so we know that he has a home. So now we have to also do this underground. Why is there an underground thing at this camp? I just don't understand it. Why would you build a camp on top of it?
No, it makes no sense. But also what makes no sense is he is, spoiler, obviously, this whole thing is, he's holding Whitney from the second cold opening hostage or captive is probably the better word, underground in his lair because there was this moment in the first cold opening. You see, this is why this is stupid. This is why this whole shit is stupid because I'm having to refer to it that way. There was a moment where we saw that Mrs. Voorhees had a locket with her, I believe as a young woman and on one side and Jason as a boy on the other. Right. And when he saw his mother be beheaded, he not only went and collected her head, but he also collected the locket. So when he sees Whitney in the second cold opening as he's an adult, he spares her because she resembles his mother. Oh.
Is her name Martha?
Why did you say that name? It is ridiculous.
What a plot device.
If that is not ridiculous enough, Lance, at one point, Jason has killed someone, taken their body downstairs. We're seeing Whitney being chained up, just kind of like wondering what's going on. And Jason then dumps the body on one side of his lair, goes over to... It's one of those like miters, whatever those things that
the wood turn or the stone turns.
Yeah, the stone wheel that sharpens. He's going to sharpen his machete, and then there's a flashback as if it's him having it.
Right. Hey, remember the locket? Do you remember the locket from the opening?
But you want us to believe that this is Jason having the flashback so that you can remind us about the locket and the machete? Oh my God, fine. In having that flashback though, he loses his shit and then charges at Whitney, grabs, she's wearing the locket. He put it on her so that I guess it's like his safe word or whatever. If ever he gets too riled up, he looks at the locket and he says, oh yes, you look like my mother. I will leave you alone, and leaves.
I will let you go because you're mom. And she's like, it's okay. But the one thing that I'm going to say is he throws a fit, and that is much more of a Leatherface thing than it has ever been a Jason thing. Right. He's throwing a fit and pissed off. Leatherface does that. Did we just forget to do that in the remake? So we're going to do it for Jason? We're mixing up the characters at this point. You're getting away from the character of Jason.
I almost half expected him to put his hands in his head and start going,
yeah. Yeah, no, I that looks like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Leatherface scene more than a Friday the 13th Jason scene.
But needless to say, folks, this is the Slashers Paradise. We are not, super hard on the movies that make a valiant attempt at, creating some good, a good flick. So while this is not at least my favorite installment, because I think that they got kind of misguided with what they were trying to do with this whole remake and trying to jumble too much into the opening credits. I think there are some nice things some good moments in the flick.
Okay, what I'm going to rewind back to is my theater experience. And the one thing that this movie is a lot about that we have not really talked about yet, the sex. There's a character named Trent in this, played by Travis Van Winkle. That might sound familiar if you've ever seen the Transformers movie, because he was in that, and he also played a character named Trent. Who produced that movie?
Michael fucking Bay.
According to Michael Bay, this is the exact same character. Trent meets his demise because everyone hated him in Transformers. So
you're serious?
Yes, according to Michael Bay. But
you can't do that.
There is a sex scene in this movie, and the reason I bring it up, I'm not usually the one to bring these scenes up.
Who is?
But Charles or Loomis. Yes, our dogs are with us on these episodes. There's a scene in the sex scene, and I bring it up because I remember being in the theater, is the most outrageous, gratuitous sounding sex scene I have ever heard, seen, been a part of, partaken in.
You were
viewed.
in there?
Well, I mean, partaked in viewing.
Yes.
It's a weird sex scene. It goes way too long. It reminds me a lot of Friday 5 at this point. But just the sound of the sex scene is what, like, it was just like, what are we doing? What movie are we watching right now? What in the hell is going on? We've seen boobs across the scene quite often for no reason at all. We even saw a girl in jet skis, topless.
Yeah.
I don't know if women do that.
Well, I haven't been jet skiing. I haven't been not jet skiing, but like water skiing. I haven't done any of that ever. But what I have done is be on a lake while it's happening, and I never saw any topless women.
No,
not doing it.
It just seems gratuitous for gratuitous sake.
It seems gratuitous. It seems ridiculous. It seems fortuitous, though. If you were having a cool moment in your life, I believe I was.
Cool times.
If you were going through cool times, I was definitely past my cool times at this point.
Yeah.
But I will say, folks, that yes, I can wholeheartedly co-sign what Lance is saying. It's funky. It's funky in the sense that if you go in wanting to watch that, then it's okay. If you want that on your screen, because let's just be honest, it's like sex on film, sex on, in a movie and stuff has its place. However, while this is a staple, at least the nudity part is a staple of the Friday the 13th franchise, this seemed like overkill. It's like, stop, he's dead already, sort of thing. Like, They have beat the dead horse over and over again. It's like, okay, we get it. It's a sex scene. It's just like, that was a lot. And it also sucked because I'm watching it and I'm like, why the hell is this asshole the one having like this like amazing bomb ass long sex? Like, I mean, as far as the movie goes, it's like it's presumed that it happened for a while. But you're right though. It's a little hard to watch.
It's oh, man.
It's hard to watch. It's definitely hard to watch in a crowded theater, especially when I chose to watch it was in an Alamo Draft House. So you have like people like ordering food. I swear to God, there was a waiter that came through. Was like, "Can I get you guys anything else?" And someone next to me was like, "Yeah, let me get the order of cheese sticks." And it was like, "Wop wop bop 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 bop," and I'm all like, "Oh,
yes.
Oh God!"
It was a very moist sound coming out of the soundtrack.
Moist.
So many people just turned off the radio for us because they said the word moist.
The radio.
I don't connect with a lot of these characters. It feels like tropes, new age tropes of characters. I don't connect to any of them, so I don't care when they're killed. I will say that Jason is pretty creative in his kills in this film. It was cool to see some classics. It was cool to see an arrow shot by Jason.
Yeah, what a
fun,
amazing marksman.
Yeah.
They definitely said that he is a hunter, so he's going to definitely have that in his repertoire to be able to shoot an arrow with velocity, with precision, at a head that is driving a speedboat.
Yeah.
And driving it like, I mean, yeah, he's pretty much going in a straight line, but I don't give a shit. That is impressive. And drills that dude. So I love when that dude gets the arrow through the head, his reaction is like, I think it's Nolan, right? I think he's that should happen, right? If you get an arrow through the head, you have like one more moment of like reaction until you're gone.
I was just going to say the brain injury is like you could have lived through that technically if it was 1 millimeter to the left or right. So yeah, you do have this like, I'm still alive, something's wrong, you know, and you slowly shut it down kind of a thing. But yeah, it was pretty good acting on that part of
I've always like,
and it's a cringe moment because
Yes.
you don't get that in most of the Friday the 13th franchise, like dead, hack, blood.
yeah, it's a little bit of a slow burn because he is driving the boat, and when he gets the arrow through his head, the Chelsea, who is on the jet skis, the water skis, has wiped out, so she's waiting for him to circle back and pick her up. And he has made the circle, and he's like on his way to her, and that's when Jason, you know, pretty much bow and arrows him through the head, but he's still going, and the boat is coming straight to Chelsea, and I've kind of been there a little bit. I remember being in a lake where we had just jumped off the pontoon. The pontoon was circling back, and I remember thinking, I remember them saying like, "Don't go under the boat," like obviously, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, "Oh, that's pretty intense," because the boat just like straight up hits her in the head, and she has like this like. I love what they did with the sound because it's like that. Like after you get blunt force trauma.
Yeah.
So
the ringing in the ears.
Yeah. That part is really cool. But can I just jump back into what you said about not connecting to any of these characters?
Yes, please.
There is one character that I absolutely 100% have to say that I reject that this character is real in any form or fashion. It is the Chewie character played by Aaron Yu. I wholeheartedly, vehemently reject that this person is a real character. Okay? I refuse to accept how clumsy this dude is. Okay? If I haven't said it, if you haven't heard, I'm going to say it one more time. I reject him as a real person. He is too clumsy. He is too... Esmas, how's this? If he is a real person, he's not their friend. He is not being invited to this place. He's not hanging out with these people if he's this much of a clumsy asshole. Okay? I'm sorry. He's clumsy when he's sober. He's clumsy when he's high. He's clumsy when he's drunk. And then his whole like inner monologue or like, you know, he's like at one point in a shed and he's just kind of like fucking around because he broke a chair and he's supposed to go over there and like, you know, get tools to fix it. He's just breaking everything.
Yeah.
Breaking everything. I hate this character. I 100% was so happy when he died. It should have been worse. But not only him. I don't think that the Lawrence character is rooted in reality. I think a lot of them kind of missed the mark. There's a one point where Lawrence is like, you know, it's Chewie's, and yes, that's his fucking name. Chewie. Is that's his partner in crime when they are like, you know, they're smoking together, they're drinking together. At one point, Chewie goes to the shed to go get tools. He will come back. Trent and what's her name? Trent and Bree go upstairs to have that incredible long sex. And Lawrence just is like, oh, yeah, the coast is clear. Let me just jerk off here in the living room. No, that's not real. You don't just say, hey, on the first day of our vacation, when I have a minute to myself, I'm going to jerk off in the center of the most common space.
Is this a nod to Teddy, this particular scene? Is this a nod to Teddy watching the old 20s porn?
Okay, if it is, then
that's what it made me think of.
If it is, then maybe. But at least Teddy Bear didn't whip it out. He's actually watching porn. Lawrence pulls out a winter catalog and tries to use that. I'm sorry, dude. It just like, that is so unrealistic. The sex is also unrealistic because this girl, Bree, is parents and everyone, I'm sorry, I apologize for being as graphic as I'm about to be, but she is basically trying to enter the rodeo at this point. And Trent is not doing anything.
He's holding on for dear life.
But he's not doing anything, Lance, in my experience. in my what I think would be the appropriate things to say during sex. What are some of the descriptors he's using when he's trying to compliment Bree's body?
I'm not going there.
Just say what he says.
We're getting very deep.
Just say what he says and we'll jump out of the water.
Nope.
What he said.
I'm not saying it.
Okay, I'll say what he says.
Of course
he says to her body, "You are stupendous. Your tits are stupendous. Lance, they're stupendous."
We have derailed in Slasher's Paradise. Okay. With everything going on at the exact same time, this is a very sexual, sex-oriented 5 minutes, 10 minutes of time going by.
All that is fine. It is fine if you want to do jump cuts from this idiot in the shed, this moron in the living room, Clay and Jenna trying to come back and because they've seen Jason and try to warn everybody and cut back to the sex. All that's fine. You don't get to describe someone during sex as stupendous.
Why not?
What? All right, maybe I should just walk away from this one. Stupendous is something that blue bloods say after they hit a chip shot on the golf course.
I remember a time in my life where everyone was saying big, ridiculous words for no reason. So maybe that was part of the culture at the time. So let's just... All right. And it doesn't translate, right? Because now we're talking about in 2022. We're like, why would
he
they
says
say
she's stupendous?
Stupendous. It's Trent. It's Trent from Transformers. What do you expect?
And it's also WrestleMania, the most stupendous WrestleMania of all time. That was their descriptor. So that makes more sense than, what you would say during sex. That's all.
Oh, man. If anyone is still with us, is there much more that we can really get into? I mean, like I said,
yes!
The kills are great. The axe kill is really cool. It comes out of your favorite character's shed. I really dug that. This is when the reveal comes of Jason to everyone, which is actually a terrifying scene because he starts running towards the cabin where everyone is in now, which is a really fun, dark, scary moment. Imagine that. I don't know if you stayed up in the cabin. I mean, I'm sure on the ranch, there's nobody around. Imagine the masked killer. You just saw them kill your friend 50 yards away. And now they're running after you.
No, I mean, I think this is one of the most interesting parts of the whole movie where they make a choice to show that Jason is that he's going to double down on his wits, on how smart he is. He's using one of their friends who he has wounded to try and goad them out so he can kill them. That part is actually pretty terrifying. It just shows wow, this dude is already vicious and terrifying. It kind of reminds me of Brock Lesnar, if I'm going to bring that up again, because think of this dude is already agile. He's already humongous. But if you also make him smarter than you have no chance. But what should be mentioned from that scene is that after Jason has thrown an axe at Lawrence, who's running away as if he is at a bar for axe throwing, he gets full form and that thing just goes and nails Lawrence, right? Destroys him. He kills him and then 2 seconds later is just on the roof.
Yeah, chilling, looking down. He teleports.
Oh, God. That doesn't the tunnels didn't allow him to do that.
Okay, well, I mean, he played the video game, right? So he just hit the fast forward button and he's on the roof.
Okay. All right. Well, Anyway, Jason's on the roof. It just, I think it's because they were like, hey, we want to do some cool stalking scenes upstairs.
Pretty much.
Let's put Jason on the roof so that he could get inside the cabin, which is him probably like, oh, y'all locked the doors. Oops. I guess I better go look for an open window.
Right.
Dude, you're 6'5". You are 300 pounds. You can make a window. You can make a door.
Oh, but luckily there's one open.
One open with all these bottles and like hair products just still on there. So not only is he huge, he's also nimble.
Nimble is the word. I knew you were going to say that.
He is incredibly nimble. Poor Brie. I think she was sweet the whole time, and obviously is a very good-looking woman who had that like stupendous sex scene.
Stupendous.
But she's one of the ones I think that gets killed in the most cool, as far as like stylized shot way, the way they shot Jason. She goes up into the bathroom and she does a whole thing where he must be behind the shower curtain. Why she's looking for him, don't know. Yeah. I don't think she's actually looking for him. I think she's just like looking like for the others or Chewie or something.
Yeah,
I don't think she's looking for Jason, but in any case, she pulls the shower curtain to the side and he's behind her, and he pretty much, Jason grabs her, puts his hand around her mouth, and they do this shot where she's struggling and she's trying to scream, but he's obviously, he's got his hand around her mouth. And it's this shot of just his one eye kind of like gleaming through, like, I'm in here now, and what are you all gonna do? And everything's cool and it looks awesome, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna snap her neck, oh, he's gonna rip it off, oh, he's gonna do something. No. What does he do? He finds the most bullshit of a wall mount that I have ever seen in my life. Folks, I grew up in Texas. I grew up on a ranch. I was a hunter, and I see a 4-point deer mount on the wall? Who does that?
The audacity.
What a waste of money to mount a 4-pointer. But that's probably what Jason thought. He's like, I'm a hunter. That's bullshit. I'm going to go ahead and just do away with that. And poor Brie, he uses that to to impale her and kill her. Very cool scene right after this, because the police essentially get there and they knock on the front door and you think they're going to save the day, and Jason just basically Batman's behind this dude, jumps from the top and stabs the police officer through the head, through the wall, that a bit of goo and guck and gore are on the, I think it's like a fire poker.
Yeah, I think so.
So we're pretty much getting to the end, folks.
The chase is on.
Yeah, the chase is on. He's killing everybody. He has killed everyone. We're basically down to, if you count Whitney, who's still in the lair, 4 survivors. So we have Clay, Whitney, Jenna, and Trent, who at this point you really do hate Trent. He hasn't been doing anything that is redeemable. He's been kind of like an asshole and not helping the group. He's pretty much self-serving, so he's trying to get away from Jason. But the funniest part, and why I think that this character ultimately redeems himself as like a important piece of the movie, when Bree gets thrown from the second floor onto the cop car, Trent screams so high pitched that I remember being in the theater and he made the entire place pop. Like they laughed so much. And then, eventually he's gonna try and flag down somebody on the road, and it's a tow truck guy, and you think there's something not right here, and he's slowly approaching the tow truck guy because he's suspicious of what's going on, and because he's taking so much time, Jason is able to catch up to him, kill him so violently, he rams the machete through him, and then basically tries to guillotine? No, not guillotine, but like split him in half. So it's through his chest, and Jason is trying to pull it up through, and then essentially he's like, all right, well, I guess this is as much as I'm going to do. I'm going to throw him on this tow truck that has this, like, the spikes that are in the back.
Yep.
And that tow truck just drives off with Trent being drugged behind. What a cool shot, though.
Yeah.
As far as that's concerned.
I like that kill. It's a fun one. It's dark. It's scary. And again, a creative Jason, a hunter Jason, a new version of Jason makes the movie enough worthwhile that I'll watch it every once in a while. But
yeah, me too.
No, like the funnest thing to go back to.
Yeah, but let's just kind of walk through the very end. You now just have Clay and Jenna who have developed this relationship with each other, and they're eventually just going to get to the end, and hopefully Clay's going to find Whitney. He eventually does, and you think, oh yay, all three of them are going to survive. They're going to make it. And what is so out of left field for me is that he finds Whitney, and it's awesome because he's like, I've been looking for you for so long. And Jenna, Danielle Panabaker, just gets killed. Mm-hmm. It was such to the audience, like, oh, you thought she was going to live, huh? But I always remember the scene because Jason is chasing him. He kills Jenna, and it's at a moment where Clay's like, oh, shit, I like you in a way because we've been like bonding. Yeah. But Whitney, who has been held captive, has now got her brother. She's basically pulling on him like, like, I don't care. I don't know who she is. I don't care who she is. Let's get the fuck going. Okay, say goodbye. Let's go. I've been held by this dude for so long. And yeah, it's like, it's a funny moment because you could can you imagine what Jenna felt in that moment?
Yeah, but what Whitney felt like we said,
what both of them did.
Maybe because, 6 weeks you've been terrorized by this dude in two different masks, and he's been holding you captive, and he's got some weird psychological thing for you, and I mean, your brother of all fucking people has come to find you and get you get the fuck out of there. Yep. It's a lot like House of Thousand Corpses, getting out of this nightmare finally and running out of there. Like, you're gonna do everything you can to scratch claw.
I know. I see that. I could see that sort of mindset for Whitney, but for Jenna, she's not killed instantly. It's basically just like a stab through the chest, and she's like having to wrestle with the idea like, oh shit, you're gonna leave me, and I'm gonna die right here. And I thought, I mean, obviously she knows that he's been looking for his sister, but anyway. Fast forward, we're pretty much at the end. It is now only two survivors, which is Whitney and Clay, the brother and sister, who are going to try their hardest to survive Jason chasing after them. Coincidentally, thank God it starts raining, and they find themselves back in the shed with Return of the Wood Chipper. The wood chipper is there, very prominently displayed. I knew it was going to come into play here now at the end, and boy does it, because with the powers combined of the Millers, Clay and Whitney, we get a barrage, Lance. A barrage of ending moments of previous Fridays. We get the Ginny sort of manipulating Jason. By acting like the mother. So Whitney basically holds up the locket in front of Jason, is like, Jason, hey, I'm me, mother. And I'm me. Amy, bad gorilla, go away. Sorry. That's from Congo. Anyway.
That is from Congo.
Which is also a horror movie, if I'm going to be honest with you. The Great Gorilla. Anyway, so... then another homage to, I believe it's Friday 3, where they hang. Yeah, they hang. Jason gets.
Oh yeah, but yeah.
And then pulls. Oh, the only thing I was waiting for is for him to pull off the mask and be like, "It's me." But they wrap a chain around him. They throw the chain into the wood chipper that is pulling him in, and he's fighting it. It's like, oh shit, Jason's gonna be able to survive this. But
not superhuman Jason, so he can't quite fight out of it.
Right. And the last thing, Whitney finally, has a moment where she is going to get her comeuppance. Jason's going to get his comeuppance, right? She's going to get her revenge, and the crowd is all ready for Jason to finally get stabbed and killed. And the one thing Whitney says is, Jason, say hi to mommy. And everyone goes, yay. And then her line goes, in hell. And the whole audience goes, shit.
You just had to mention hell in this franchise, didn't you?
Fucking ruined it. It's like it's that meme where the guy's like, ha, and then they finish the line. He was like, oh, dang, I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
So anyway, the movie pretty much ends, folks. It's doing this Halloween-esque thing where it's going to all places where Jason was and had kills, kind of like they do at the end of Halloween. And I'm like, well, if you were going to double down on the idea that this franchise only exists because you copied Halloween, you might as well do it in the remake too.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. I don't
Maybe.
know. I don't understand it. I mean, because it doesn't really serve a purpose. Like, none of these locations actually stuck with me. You know what I mean? Like it did in Halloween. It made sense in Halloween. You're like, oh yeah, like that's where it all happened. Like that spot. Then you show us the ones on Friday the 13th. Like, oh, okay, that's scenic. Jason's bed apparently is still intact. So
I'm glad that they got him a bed that said Jason on it, just
so
in
we
case
know.
We know, and that he knows, because every night he's probably like, I don't know where my bed is. That's it.
Yeah. Why is everything so decrepit at this camp, by the way? Like,
I mean, you know, it is what I mean. I'm sure there's some good fishing on that dock, on that lake. But yeah, the one last homage, which I think is so stupid. You fought so hard to get away from this dude who was terrorizing you as Whitney, and then brother Clay, but you found the time to wrap him in burlap and throw him in the lake to water bury him. The fuck are you doing?
Nope.
Leave. Just leave. But what? You set yourself up for the last homage, the one thing that you have to have, Jason exploding from the lake and grabbing Whitney, a la grabbing Alice in the original Friday the 13th, Fade to Black. That is the movie.
so once again, is this a dream sequence or is this a real sequence? The reason I ask is because when they throw the mask separate from Jason's body, there is obviously cut off the mask. So it can't be on his face. It can't fit perfectly on his face. When he jumps through the deck, blasts off and grabs her, the mask is on, it is intact. So is this a dream sequence?
Well,
like, is that the throwback? Is like, oh, you decide.
Well, if he can teleport onto the roof, he could also grab the mask right before he comes up from the water.
I see.
Because they're both on the ground on the lake floor. But I want to believe it's a dream. I believe the first one was a dream. I like that this one should be a dream. I've just always like that, because if you look at Friday the 13th, 1980 for what it was and how it ended, and you know, the last thing you saw, that should be it. You know, it's a dream. There was no way Jason would be in the water, and it's just a one final scare, and it's left up to you. It's like, no, of course that didn't happen. But this one, who knows? Who knows? All the elements were still there. Nothing that stuck in this movie was ever able to get anyone too excited to create more. They would have if they wanted to, but this is it. This is where we end the Friday the 13th franchise as of now.
Fun fact, Scout Taylor Compton actually auditioned for Jenna, and this came out after Halloween 2007, so just keep that in mind. She was almost the remake horror queen. Tommy Jarvis was also supposed to be a part of this. His original concept didn't work out for us, unfortunately.
I would have loved for Corey Feldman to just make a cameo as Tommy Jarvis and be like, what's going on here? You know, I don't know why that's the line that he says. I think that's from The Lost Boys, honestly, at the end when he's trying to like calm the parasite. What's going on here? There's vampires. You know, he just like, maybe he's the tow truck driver, but then like, whatever. It would have been cool if he was the police officer. Anything. But like, I still think me in my heart of hearts, because I've always been a Corey Feldman fan, even with his weird music and everything that he's doing right now, I have always been a Corey Feldman as Tommy Jarvis fan. So I would love it. Absolutely love it, Lance. If they made whatever they do from here on out, if there is some way to incorporate my boy Corey Feldman as Tommy Jarvis.
That would be amazing. We are done with the franchise, but I think we'll have a little bit more to say about it. Join us on our next episode, Happy Hour of Horror, where we're going to dive into the whole franchise, the future of the franchise, and our take on where things should go. Danny, how many machetes do you give Friday the 13th, 2009?
I'm going to go ahead and just not overthink this one again and just give it 2 machetes.
Okay. Yikes. I'll give it like a 2.5. again, it's like in another tier of like, it's a decent horror film, but it's nothing fun. It's nothing amazing. It doesn't set a new bar for Friday the 13th or Jason. So cool new Jason though. That was fun.
Yeah.
All right. And then that's going to be all. So until next time, that's Danny. I'm Lance, reminding you to
Lock your doors.
bolt your windows.
And come that close to hitting the start button on the whoop-ass machine, boy.
And join us next time in our Slasher's Paradise.
Stupendous. Hey, did you see anything you like?
Thanks for watching Slasher's Paradise tonight. Please hit the like and subscribe button and turn on all of your notifications so you know the next time we post a video or go live.
And if you'd like an audio-only version of the show, search for us on wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it. We're on all the platforms. We just ask that you leave a rate and review of 5 stars. And if you don't know what to write in the review section, put a recommendation of a horror movie you would love for Lance and I to talk about.
Yes, and if you'd like to get the full experience of Slasher's Paradise, including videos and audio all together, go to deadcandy.com, that's DEDCANDY, or go to youtube.com/deadcandy. Here's to you guys.
This is Slasher's Paradise. Sorry, I had to work that in.
And I'm going to drink on that.
Blended Canadian.